Isn't that something worth mastering? The ability to remain calm, collected, and centered no matter what life throws at you. I've been teaching personal development for many years, and I can tell you this skill alone can transform your life in ways you cannot imagine. Let me ask you this, how much is peace of mind worth to you? How valuable would it be to maintain your composure when everyone else is losing theirs? What would your life look like if you could respond rather than react to life's challenges? Think about that for a moment. The storm and the captain. I want you to picture a ship caught in a violent storm. The waves are crashing against the hull, the wind is howling, and the rain is coming down in sheets. The passengers are panicking, running around frantically. But what about the captain? The captain is calm. The captain is focused. Why? Because the captain has been trained to handle storms. The captain knows that panic doesn't solve problems, clear thinking does. You see, in life, we're all captains of our own ships. In life, my friends, will throw storms at you. That's not a possibility, that's a guarantee. The question isn't whether you'll face storms. The question is how you'll navigate them. I've often said, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for fewer problems, wish for more skills. Don't wish for fewer challenges, wish for more wisdom. That's the philosophy that can change your life. That's the mindset that can transform how you respond to every situation. Reaction vs. response. Now let's talk about the difference between reacting and responding. This is crucial, so I hope you're taking notes. When you react, you're on autopilot. You're letting your emotions drive your behavior. It's instinctive, it's immediate, and often it's not very intelligent. Reactions come from our primitive brain, the part that's concerned with survival, not success. But when you respond, you're making a conscious choice. You're inserting a pause between the stimulus and your action. You're engaging your higher brain functions, your reason, your wisdom, your values. Responses come from intelligence. Reactions come from programming. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone cuts you off in traffic. The reaction might be to honk your horn, gesture angrily, maybe even follow them to give them a piece of your mind. But what does that get you? Elevated blood pressure? A confrontation? An accident? The response might be to take a deep breath, realize their behavior isn't about you, and continue safely on your way. Which approach serves you better? Which approach keeps you in control of your day, your emotions, your life? I've always said your life does not get better by chance, it gets better by change. If you want to be calmer in every situation, you have to change how you interpret and respond to the events in your life. The cost of emotional reactivity. Let's talk economics for a moment. Everything has a cost, doesn't it? Well, emotional reactivity, the inability to stay calm under pressure, has a tremendous cost. And I'm not just talking about financial costs, although that's certainly part of it. When you lose your calm, you lose your ability to think clearly. When you lose your ability to think clearly, you make poor decisions. When you make poor decisions, you create problems for yourself and others. It's a downward spiral that can affect every area of your life, your relationships, your career, your finances. Did you know that stress-related ailments cost Americans billions in healthcare each year? Did you know that the majority of workplace conflicts stem from emotional reactions rather than rational disagreements? Did you know that most relationship problems can be traced back to poor emotional management? The cost is enormous, but here's the good news. You can learn to be calm. You can train your mind just like you can train your body. It's a skill, not a personality trait. And like any skill, it requires understanding, practice, and discipline. The 4 pillars of mental calmness. I want to share with you what I call the 4 pillars of mental calmness. These are the foundational principles that will help you develop the ability to stay calm in any situation. Pillar 1, perspective. The first pillar is perspective. How you see a situation determines how you feel about it. If you see it as a disaster, you'll feel panicked. If you see it as a challenge, you'll feel engaged. If you see it as an opportunity, you'll feel excited. I remember talking to a very successful entrepreneur who told me about losing $1 million contract. I asked him how he felt about it. He said, at first I was devastated. But then I asked myself, what's the lesson here? What's the opportunity? By the end of the week, we had secured 2 new contracts worth $1.5 million combined. If we hadn't lost that first contract, we wouldn't have had the bandwidth to pursue these new opportunities. That's perspective in action. It's not denying reality. It's interpreting reality in a way that empowers you rather than defeats you. The ancient Stoics had a practice called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. They would regularly contemplate worst-case scenarios, not to worry about them, but to put them in perspective and prepare for them. When you've already mentally rehearsed how you'll handle difficult situations, they lose their power to disturb your peace of mind. Here's a simple exercise. The next time you face a challenge, ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? Will this matter in 5 months? Will this matter in 5 weeks? Will this matter in 5 days? Often the answer is no. And if it won't matter then, why let it steal your peace now? Pillar 2, presence. The second pillar is presence, being fully engaged with the present moment. Most of our anxiety comes from dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, but calm exists in the now. I've always said the greatest gift you can give someone is your attention. Well, the greatest gift you can give yourself is your own attention. Be where you are. Do what you're doing. Experience life as it's happening, not as you're imagining it or remembering it. Have you ever noticed that when you're fully absorbed in a task, whether it's playing a sport, engaging in a hobby, or solving a complex problem, you feel a sense of calm flow? That's presence. That's your mind fully engaged with the now. Meditation is one of the most effective ways to develop presence. It's not about emptying your mind, it's about training your attention. When you meditate, you practice bringing your focus back to the present moment again and again. Over time, this becomes your default mode of operating. But you don't need to sit cross-legged on a cushion to practice presence. You can bring mindful awareness to any activity. When you're eating, just eat. When you're walking, just walk. When you're listening, just listen. Simple, isn't it? But not easy. That's why it's called a practice. Pillar 3, preparation. The third pillar is preparation. Much of our stress comes from feeling unprepared for life's challenges. But when you're prepared mentally, emotionally, physically, you approach situations with confidence rather than fear. There's a reason why emergency responders, military personnel, and high-performance athletes remain calm under pressure. They've prepared extensively. They've trained their minds and bodies to execute under stress. They've developed routines and protocols that kick in automatically when needed. You can do the same in your life. Identify the situations that typically cause you stress and prepare for them in advance. Create morning routines that set you up for a calm, productive day. Develop contingency plans for common work challenges. Rehearse difficult conversations before having them. I've always emphasized the value of continuous learning and self-improvement. When you're constantly growing, you're building your capacity to handle life's challenges. You're expanding your comfort zone so that fewer situations feel overwhelming. Remember, preparation isn't about trying to control everything. It's about developing the skills, resources, and mindset to navigate uncertainty effectively. It's about building confidence in your ability to handle whatever comes your way. Pillar 4, practice. The fourth pillar is practice. Knowledge isn't power. Applied knowledge is power. Understanding these principles intellectually won't make you calmer. You have to put them into practice consistently. Start small. Don't wait for a major crisis to practice calmness. Begin with the minor irritations of daily life, traffic jams, long lines technology glitches, disagreements with colleagues. These are your training grounds. When you feel yourself becoming tense or frustrated, pause. Take a deep breath. Remember your perspective. Bring yourself back to the present moment. Draw on your preparation. Make a conscious choice about how to respond. Each time you do this, you're strengthening neural pathways in your brain. You're creating new habits. You're training your mind to be calm by default rather than reactive by default. And here's something crucial to understand. This is a lifelong practice. I've been working on this for decades, and I still have moments where I lose my calm. The difference is that now I recognize it more quickly, I recover more rapidly, and I learn from each experience. The science of staying calm. Let's talk about what happens in your brain and body when you're triggered versus when you're calm. This is fascinating, and understanding it can give you more control over your responses. When you perceive a threat, whether physical or psychological, your amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure in your brain, activates your stress response. Your body releases adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart rate increases, your breathing quickens, and blood flows away from your digestive system and toward your limbs, preparing you to fight or flee. This is a brilliant evolutionary adaptation for physical threats, but it's not so helpful when the threat is a critical email, a traffic jam, or a disagreement with your spouse. In these situations, you need your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for higher level thinking, planning, and decision making. The problem is when your amygdala is activated, your prefrontal cortex is inhibited. You literally can't think clearly when you're emotionally flooded. That's why taking a pause, even just a few deep breaths, is so powerful. It gives your body time to settle, allowing your prefrontal cortex to come back online. Regular practices like meditation, deep breathing, and physical exercise actually change your brain over time. They strengthen your prefrontal cortex and reduce the reactivity of your amygdala. They improve the connection between different parts of your brain, allowing for more integrated, balanced responses to stress. This isn't esoteric philosophy, this is neuroscience. You can literally rewire your brain to be calmer through consistent practice. Isn't that remarkable? You have that power. Cultivating emotional literacy. Now, being calm doesn't mean suppressing or denying your emotions. Quite the opposite. True calmness comes from emotional literacy, the ability to recognize, understand, and work with your feelings effectively. Many of us were never taught how to relate to our emotions productively. We were told to stop crying, to calm down, to get over it. But emotions don't work that way. Emotions need acknowledgement and expression, but in constructive rather than destructive ways. When you feel an intense emotion arising, try this approach. Name it. I'm feeling frustrated right now. I notice anxiety coming up. I'm experiencing disappointment. The simple act of naming your emotion creates a bit of distance between you and the feeling. You're no longer fully identified with it, you're observing it. Then locate the emotion in your body. Where do you feel it? Is there tightness in your chest? A knot in your stomach? Tension in your shoulders? This grounds the emotion in physical sensation rather than mental story. Next, be curious about it. What's triggering this feeling? What does it want me to know? What need is it pointing to? Emotions are messengers. They contain valuable information if you're willing to listen. Finally, respond wisely. Based on what you've learned from the emotion, what's the most constructive action you can take? Sometimes the wisest response is simply to breathe and let the emotion move through you without acting on it at all. This process might take only a few seconds once you've practiced it, but it transforms your relationship with emotions from being driven by them to being informed by them. And that makes all the difference in maintaining your calm. Communication under pressure. Let's talk about one of the most challenging areas for maintaining calmness, communication, especially difficult conversations. When conversations get heated, most people either become aggressive or shut down. Neither approach serves you well. The key is to remain engaged but not reactive, assertive but not attacking, open but not vulnerable to being overwhelmed. Here's a framework I've found incredibly useful. I call it the CALM, approach to communication. C, connect with the other person's perspective. Try to genuinely understand where they're coming from, even if you disagree. This doesn't mean you have to agree, it means you make an effort to see their point of view. A, assert your own needs and boundaries clearly and respectfully. Use activities rather than you accusations. I feel concerned when, rather you always. L, listen deeply without planning your rebuttal while the other person is speaking. Give them your full attention. Ask clarifying questions to ensure you're understanding correctly. M, manage the process of the conversation. Suggest timeouts if emotions are escalating. Summarize points of agreement and disagreement. Focus on solutions rather than dwelling on problems. This approach works in personal relationships, business negotiations, customer service interactions, any situation where communication happens under pressure. Remember, the goal isn't to win the conversation, it's to reach understanding and resolution while maintaining everyone's dignity. When you approach communication this way, you can discuss even the most sensitive topics while remaining calm and centered. Creating environments that foster calmness. Your environment has a profound impact on your state of mind. Just as it's easier to eat healthily when your kitchen is stocked with nutritious foods, it's easier to maintain calmness when your environment supports it. Start with your physical environment. Clutter creates mental noise. A disorganized space can generate a constant low-level anxiety that makes it harder to stay calm. Take time to create spaces that feel orderly and peaceful. Then consider your digital environment. The average person checks their phone 96 times a day. That's once every 10 minutes. Each check can trigger stress responses from work emails to social media comparisons to news alerts. Set boundaries around technology use. Create periods of digital silence in your day. Your social environment matters tremendously too. Jim Rohn, that's me, famously said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." If you're surrounded by reactive, negative people, it's much harder to maintain your own calm. Choose to spend time with those who have mastered their emotional responses, who bring out the best in you. Finally, consider your informational environment. What are you feeding your mind? A constant diet of alarming news, violent entertainment, and polarizing social media content trains your brain to be in a perpetual state of high alert. Be intentional about what information you consume and when. Creating environments that foster calmness isn't about controlling everything around you. It's about making conscious choices that support your well-being and removing unnecessary stressors that drain your mental energy. The role of physical well-being. We can't talk about mental calmness without addressing physical well-being. Your mind and body are not separate systems, they're one integrated whole. Sleep deprivation makes it nearly impossible to regulate your emotions effectively. Even mild sleep deficits can increase emotional reactivity by 60%. Prioritize quality sleep as a foundation for emotional balance. Nutrition plays a critical role too. Blood sugar fluctuations can trigger mood swings and anxiety. Caffeine and alcohol can disrupt your natural ability to maintain sun. Certain nutrients like omega-3 fatty acids, B vitamins, cesium are essential for optimal brain function and stress management. Regular physical activity is one of the most powerful tools for developing calmness. Exercise releases tension from your body, produces endorphins that improve your mood, and increases your resilience to stress. It doesn't have to be intense. Even a daily walk can make a significant difference. Hydration matters more than most people realize. Even mild dehydration affects your brain function and mood regulation. Something as simple as drinking enough water throughout the day can help you stay more centered and clear-headed. These fundamentals might seem basic, but they're profoundly important. Neglecting physical well-being while trying to develop mental calmness is like trying to build a house on sand. Take care of your body, and your mind will have a solid foundation from which to operate. Calmness in the face of crisis. We've talked about maintaining calm in everyday situations, but what about genuine crisis? What about those moments when something truly significant is at stake? First, understand that everything we've discussed becomes even more important during crisis, not less. The principles are the same, the stakes are just higher. Your ability to maintain perspective, stay present, draw on your preparation, and apply your practice is tested most intensely during these times. Second, accept that crisis often comes with intense emotions. The goal isn't to feel nothing, it's to feel everything without being overwhelmed by it. Allow the emotions to move through you without defining or driving you. Third, focus on what you can control. In any crisis, there are factors within your influence and factors beyond it. Directing your energy toward what you can impact not only produces better outcomes, but also preserves your sense of agency and calm. Fourth, remember that crisis reveals character. It doesn't create it. How you respond in moments of intense pressure is largely determined by the habits you've developed during calmer times. This is why daily practice is so essential. And finally, look for the growth opportunity within every crisis. Some of life's most important lessons and most significant personal development come through navigating difficult situations successfully. I've known people who have lost fortunes, faced life-threatening illnesses, endured devastating betrayals, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more at peace than before. Not because the experiences were pleasant, but because they used them as catalysts for profound inner transformation. The spiritual dimension of calmness. There's a spiritual dimension to calmness that deserves our attention. Whatever your religious or philosophical orientation, cultivating a sense of connection to something larger than yourself can be a powerful anchor during turbulent times. Many traditions speak about surrendering to what is, not in the sense of passive resignation, but in the sense of acknowledging reality as it is before attempting to change it. There's profound wisdom in this approach. When you stop fighting against what's already happened, you free up tremendous energy to respond effectively. Gratitude practices have been shown scientifically to shift your nervous system toward a calmer state. Taking time each day to acknowledge what's going well, what you appreciate, what you're thankful for. This isn't just positive thinking, it's training your attention to notice the full spectrum of your experience rather than fixating on problems. Contemplating your place in the larger arc of time and space can also foster calmness. Most of what stresses us won't matter in a year, let alone in a century. This isn't to diminish your legitimate concerns, but to put them in a broader context that can release some of their emotional charge. Many people find that service to others, shifting focus from their own worries to supporting someone else's well-being, creates a natural sense of calm and purpose. There's something about transcending self-concern that soothes the anxious mind. Whatever form it takes for you, nurturing this spiritual dimension can provide a deep well of calmness that sustains you through life's inevitable challenges. Teaching calmness to others. If you're a parent, leader, teacher, or someone who influences others, one of the most valuable gifts you can give is helping them develop this capacity for calmness. Remember that you teach primarily through modeling. Children learn emotional regulation, not through lectures, but by watching how the adults in their lives handle stress. Employees absorb cultural norms about emotional expression by observing how leaders respond to setbacks and challenges. Be explicit about your own practice. When you make a conscious choice to respond calmly rather than react emotionally, share your thought process. I notice I'm feeling frustrated right now, so I'm taking a deep breath and considering the most constructive response. This transparency helps others understand that calmness is a skill, not an innate trait. Create environments where it's safe to acknowledge emotions without being defined by them. When someone in your sphere of influence is emotionally triggered, resist the urge to tell them to calm down, which rarely helps. Instead, validate their feelings while modeling steadiness yourself. Teach specific techniques for developing calmness: deep breathing, counting to 10, taking a brief walk, writing out feelings before responding. Different approaches work for different people. Offer options rather than prescriptions. And perhaps most importantly, be patient. Learning emotional self-regulation is a lifelong journey, not a destination. Celebrate progress rather than expecting perfection. Calmness as a competitive advantage. Let's talk about the pragmatic benefits of developing this skill. In today's fast-paced, high-pressure world, the ability to maintain calm under pressure isn't just nice to have, it's a significant competitive advantage. In business, the person who can think clearly when markets are volatile makes better investment decisions. The leader who stays centered during organizational crisis inspires confidence and creates psychological safety for their team. The entrepreneur who remains steady through the inevitable setbacks of building a company perseveres where others quit. In your career, being known as someone who handles pressure with grace opens doors to greater responsibility and opportunity. People trust those who demonstrate emotional stability. They want to work with, promote, and follow individuals who remain composed when challenges arise. In relationships, the ability to stay calm during conflict leads to healthier communication, faster resolution, and deeper connection. Many relationships fail not because of the issues faced, but because of how those issues are discussed and managed emotionally. Even in health outcomes, your capacity for calmness affects your physical well-being. Chronic stress is linked to 6 of the leading causes of death. Learning to maintain emotional equilibrium isn't just about feeling better, it's about living longer and healthier. The ability to train your mind to be calm in every situation truly is a superpower in today's world. It's an investment that pays dividends in every area of your life. Calmness as a journey, not a destination. As we begin to wrap up our time together, I want to emphasize that developing calmness is a journey, not a destination. There is no point at which you arrive and never experience emotional reactivity again. Even the most accomplished practitioners of emotional regulation have moments where they lose their center. The difference lies in how quickly you notice when you've been triggered, how effectively you bring yourself back to balance, and what you learn from each experience. Over time, the arc of the journey bends toward greater equilibrium, but it's never a straight line. Be compassionate with yourself when you lose your calm. Use those moments as valuable feedback rather than evidence of failure. Ask yourself, what triggered me? What story was I telling myself? What need wasn't being met? How might I respond differently next time? Track your progress over months and years, not days and weeks. Notice how situations that once would have thrown you into emotional turmoil now barely register. Acknowledge how your recovery time from emotional activation is shortened. And remember that this journey isn't about becoming emotionless or detached. It's about developing the capacity to feel everything while remaining grounded in your deeper values and intentions. It's about expanding your window of tolerance so that you can experience the full range of human emotion without being destabilized by it. The decision to change. We've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the 4 pillars of mental calmness: perspective, presence, preparation, and practice. We've discussed the science of staying calm, emotional literacy, communication under pressure, and creating supportive environments. We've looked at physical well-being, crisis management, and the spiritual dimension of calmness. We've considered how to teach these skills to others and the competitive advantages they provide. But information alone doesn't create transformation. Knowledge without action is merely potential. The question now is, what will you do with what you've learned? Will these ideas become part of how you live, or will they remain interesting concepts that you heard one day and then forgot? The difference between those who grow and those who stagnate isn't opportunity, intelligence, or luck. It's decision. The decision to apply what you learn. The decision to practice consistently. The decision to prioritize your development even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. As I often say, you cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. Today you can decide to move in the direction of greater calmness, greater emotional mastery, greater presence and peace. And that decision, reinforced daily through practice, will gradually transform your experience of life. Your next steps. Let me leave you with some specific next steps to begin or deepen this journey. First, start a daily practice of mindfulness or meditation, even if it's just 5 minutes each morning. This builds your baseline capacity for presence and awareness. Second, identify your emotional triggers, the situations, interactions, or thoughts that most commonly disrupt your calm. Awareness is the first step toward transformation. Third, develop a personal reset ritual, a brief practice you can use anywhere to bring yourself back to center when you're activated. Maybe it's 3 deep breaths. Maybe it's silently repeating a phrase that grounds you. Maybe it's a brief body scan to release tension. Fourth, find a way to track your progress, perhaps a journal where you record instances when you maintain calm in situations that would have previously triggered you. Celebrating small wins reinforces new patterns. Fifth, share your journey with others. Teaching someone else what you're learning solidifies your own understanding and practice. And finally, be patient with yourself. Remember that you're unwinding patterns that may have been established over decades. Change happens gradually, then suddenly. Trust the process. The ultimate reward. The ultimate reward of this journey isn't just avoiding the negative consequences of emotional reactivity. It's gaining access to a quality of life that most people never experience. When you're no longer at the mercy of triggering situations and your own reactive patterns, you become truly free. Free to choose your response in any situation. Free to maintain your integrity under pressure. Free to act from your highest values rather than your momentary impulses. This freedom creates a profound sense of inner peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances. It allows you to engage fully with life without being tossed about by its inevitable ups and downs. It enables you to be a steady presence for others when they're struggling, a beacon of calm in stormy seas. And perhaps most importantly, it helps you become more fully yourself, not a bundle of reactive patterns and protective strategies, but a conscious, intentional human being who brings your unique gifts to the world with clarity and purpose. Isn't that worth the effort? Isn't that worth the practice? Isn't that worth the daily decision to train your mind to be calm in every situation? I believe it is. I believe you are worth it. And I believe that as you walk this path, you'll discover resources within yourself that you never knew existed. Reserves of wisdom, compassion, strength, and peace that will transform not only your experience of life, but also your impact on everyone around you. Thank you for your attention today. Now go out there and put these principles into practice. Your calmer, more centered self is waiting to emerge. All it takes is your decision to begin, and then to begin again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. That's how transformation happens. That's how you become the captain who navigates the storms with steady hands and a clear mind. That's how you train your mind to be calm in every situation.